Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the inaugural Black History Month event sponsored by the recently formed Black Alumni Advisory Council here at Montclair State University. I thought that was worthy of applause also. And so I'm sure they do, with all the work they've been doing, I'm sure they do also. But this event will consist of a presentation and panel discussion featuring the Jersey Four, and it'll be moderated by Montclair State's own Professor Jason Williams. My name is Greg Collins. I'm a 1979 graduate of Montclair State. I am a founding member of the Black Alumni Advisory Council. I am also the current chair of the board of the Montclair State University Foundation. And for those of you that don't know what the foundation is the organization that generates money for activities on campus like scholarships, buildings, anything that the university needs. It's our job to try to get the funds together to make that happen. Some of our charter members are here. They're sitting up front. They include our president, Joanne Bowman, and vice president, Joanne you're going to hear from later, and our vice president, Brenda Coleman Caldwell. I would like to also acknowledge, the Student Government Association participated in this and the Black Student Union. And I'd like to give a special thanks for all the efforts of Montclair State's Office of Alumni Engagement. Thank you, Jean Morano. Thank you, Elisa, who's around here somewhere. You'll see her directing things in the back. But thank you, Elisa Zanola, and for all you guys have done for us to help us get this organization going. Social justice has been an issue in America for 200 years. Recently, it's come to the forefront in the media because of the major cases like George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor and the Black Lives Matter movement. I want to tell you that one of my first initiatives as chair of the board of the foundation was to put together a subcommittee on social justice. And Bob Gregory, who is in the audience today, is the head of that committee. And we put together a statement on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And Bob has since shared it with some of the other volunteer boards here at the university. During this process, the brand new president of this university, Dr. Jonathan Capel, supported everything that we did, reviewed the statement, and really got behind us. I think he showed that his sincerity on this issue, and it was a meaningful issue to him also, and I really felt supported with him behind us. So at this moment, I'm honored to bring up to the forefront in front of you, President Jonathan Capel, or as I call him, the architect of the future of Montclair State University.
Very pretentious way to introduce me, but I appreciate it. I'm so excited to be here tonight. I'm incredibly grateful to Greg for his work on the foundation and the social justice initiative that he talked about, but particularly to the Black Alumni Council for supporting this event and making it happen. I think that it speaks to what we want the university to be, which is an agent of social change and social action. And part of the way you accomplish change is to call out where we are and where we need to improve. And the story that we're going to hear about tonight is one that has to be addressed. We obviously, as Greg said, we're obviously in a moment where we're talking about situations that are unfolding because people now walk around with little television studios in their pocket. And so we can see in vivid color what a lot of people have experienced for a long time and didn't need to see a video to know what was going on in everyday life. In this instance, actually, Greg and I were just talking about this before. In this instance, and I get choked up even thinking it, we get to hear the story from Rayshawn, Jermaine, and Danny because they made it through, right? How many stories do we not hear because there was no video and there was nobody left to tell the tale afterwards? And that's the reality that we're talking about. And there's some people in society right now, and we just gotta call what it is. You don't want to talk about the history that has preceded where we are today, because it is dark, and it is a source. It should be a source of shame, but that is our history, and the powerful opportunity from telling these stories is actually to make it better. And that's why I'm so impressed when I was reading the story of the three gentlemen that we will hear from tonight. It's inspiring. It's inspiring to me, and I think it's inspiring to tell this story on our campus, because here you have three very young men at the time who went through something that I can't really imagine. I mean, I can try to imagine it, but I can't really imagine the moment of trauma, but then everything that came after. And what inspires me and, quite frankly, humbles me is to take that and say, I'm not going to let that define me in tragic terms. I'm going to use that, and I'm going to create this as a platform to do good through the foundation that they created and the personal engagement they have beyond the philanthropic activity and the ways in which they're trying to use resources to make problems better. That is so powerful, right? Because that's really what we're trying to do here, right? Let's imagine how we take the university and not just study, not just understand, but actually mobilize it and take on these problems about the very stuff that we're talking about tonight. So I'm absolutely thrilled that we get to host this. I think this is a window onto the kind of Montclair State University that we're trying to build, and hopefully we'll have more opportunities to do things like this. And again, so grateful for the alumni for being the drivers to make this event happen. I think that says a lot, and I can't wait to engage and support more of you in that process. So thank you. Thank you to all of you, and I don't want to put more space between you and our fantastic speakers. Thank you, Greg.
Okay, the guys are in the back, but over 20 years ago, before there was George Floyd and all these other issues that came about, there was the Jersey Four. Rayshawn Brown, Jermaine Grant, Keyshawn Moore, and Danny Reyes. 4 young men who were viciously attacked, and I have no problem using that terminology, viciously attacked by New Jersey State Troopers on a New Jersey Turnpike for the simple crime of driving while black. The case has inspired a lot of legislation across the country on racial profiling and the use of dash cams and things like that, and it still resounds in communities across America. They have spent the years since that tragic event being actively committed to work in the communities, working on social justice issue, mentoring kids, and being entrepreneurs. I was first introduced to them over 20 years ago, immediately after the event happened, by 2 colleagues of mine, Reverend Sharpton and my mentor, Attorney Johnny Cochran. And they brought these guys to me and said, listen, these are really good guys. Don't believe anything that the media has put out there about them. These are really good guys. I want you to make sure that the right thing happens for them and everything happens in the right direction. So since then, I've taken on the role sort of as a bad uncle for them, leading them close enough to trouble, but then backing them away. But we have had some good times. They've been working on a documentary. They're going to show you some of these things now. But at this point, I'd like to bring out Montclair's own Jason Jason Williams, Professor Jason Williams, and 3 members of the Jersey Four. That would be Danny Reyes, Jermaine Grant, and Rashawn. And I'm going to turn the program over to Jason Williams, and he will take it from here.
Okay, thank you so much to you, Greg, and the council for providing us with this wonderful event tonight. Before we begin, though, I want to swing the pendulum over to you, Danny, so you can begin with introductions.
Okay, cool. Good afternoon. It is an honor and a pleasure to be here amongst you fine people at a place of high learning. It was back in 1998 that my friends and I were heading to a place of high learning. We were looking forward to going to school and playing college basketball. Unfortunately, we were racially profiled, pulled over unjustly, and ultimately shot by New Jersey State Troopers. I was shot 6 times. I still have a bullet in my stomach. We survived, and we became part of a movement that still goes on today. Although I lost my basketball career, I was fortunate enough to have survived to tell my story. My mother was a retired police officer back in Puerto Rico at the time, so I don't paint all police officers with the same brush. I know there's good police and bad police officers. To quote the late Johnny Cochran, our former lawyer, may he rest in peace, we need to get to a place where the bad police fear the good police and not vice versa. We need to root out the bad police officers, establish a positive culture that values equality and protects people's civil rights. Organizing, protesting continues to be an important part in today's civil rights movement. The George Floyd video woke up America. The people protested, came out, and demanded justice. That's one of the similarities to our case, because back in our case, we were fortunate enough to have the support of the people that organized, came out, protests and rallies, and demanded a proper investigation. We went from suspects to ultimately both troopers getting indicted for aggravated assault and attempted murder against me. Our case became high profile. One of the immediate changes from our case was the addition of cameras in every trooper vehicle. Bringing it back to the George Floyd incident and many recent incidents are overviewed by everyone. One of the biggest differences that I've been seeing in recent times is just seeing the support of all people, Black, Latino, white, all races are coming out and demanding justice. The movement has gone across the world, so we must continue to bring a light to this issue, fight for equality and people's civil rights.
Jermaine.
Yes. My name is Leroy Jermaine Grant. I'm part of the Jersey Four, which is known as Four Chosen also. Four Chosen stands for 4 young men who actually exposed the situation, survived and exposed the situation that was going on the Jersey Turnpike for years. And I never knew driving up the turnpike was so terrifying until I was hearing stories. But I was like, okay, didn't know. I was shot 4 times. I was the passenger in the back seat. I was actually asleep. The first bullet that entered the car woke me up. That shattered my kneecap. My kneecap, my back, my arm, my rib, and got grazed in my head. So to reiterate what my friend said, my brother, and Keyshawn Moore's not here. He's also our brother. But we're blessed. We're blessed. We're blessed to be amongst our family and friends who is our rock. And God is good. God is good. And that's it, bro.
How about you, Ray?
I'm Ray Sean Brown, one of the Jersey Four members. For me, this situation was a major setback. It took away my opportunity of becoming a professional basketball player, as well as my brothers. I spent 2 years in intensive psychiatric therapy. I spent 2 years in PT. I had reconstructive surgery done to get mobility and move strength in my right arm. It's hard for me to talk about this situation because of the effect it has on me, because I still question, why did it happen to me? Why was it me, the one who got shot, as well as my brothers? But I never done anything wrong, didn't pursue into being a negative individual. So I'm like really hurt by this situation to this present day. I can move on as far as life goes. You gotta take it back.
No problem.
Can I just piggyback on that? And we came from households, we respect law enforcement. Some of our family members, some of our friends with law enforcement who do the job the right way. It's a word that people are not talking about. It's called abuse of power. One of the charges that the state troopers had was called falsifying records. That means if they pulled over 10 people, then they would say, okay, we pulled over 5 white, 5 black, but it was really 10 black. So one day, the investigators knocked on somebody named James Williams, and he opened up the door and said, oh, you're black, we're looking for James Williams, he's white. And as they repeatedly was knocking on these doors on these tickets, they was like, oh shit, excuse my language. These guys are falsifying records. Mm-hmm. And one of the state troopers was up for Trooper of the Year. So it was kind of like the perfect storm for both of them to be in this kind of situation because they was reckless from the beginning. One of the troopers was in a shooting 2 weeks prior to us, and he was let right back on the road. So the recklessness in the system, it's a broken system. It's just crazy. That's why we call ourselves Fort Chosen. Every storm runs out of rain.
Oh, some deep commentary. At this moment, however, what we want to do is pivot to a video. Okay, this video was done in collaboration with Paul Wood and Jesse Gomez, who are journalists, and they are with us here tonight as well.
Yeah,
Thank you for your work.
The video, it's a bio video presentation that they helped us, and then we also have a trailer to our upcoming film, the Jersey 4 documentary that will be out later this year. So you can get a look of what's coming. We've been in production for like the last 5 years. Yeah.
So at this moment, we'll go ahead and play the video.
What if the situation happened differently that night? But it did. This is God's will, and this is something that we have to actually embrace. I got shot in my left knee, damaged my kneecap severely, shot in my right arm, shot in my rib, shot in my back.
I was shot 6 times, but the injury that still affects me to this day is the 2 shots that I got shot in my right arm because it shattered the bone. So I still have a metal plate here, and I still have a metal plate right here, right? I also got shot on this left arm, but at the time I didn't even feel it because this one, it didn't hit the bone. It was just like an in and out wound. And then I had 2 more shots that I got shot on, kind of like on my hip. One is like in and out. And then the other one, it traveled, and that's the bullet that I still have to this day right here in my stomach. And then I have the shot on my back. And that one I was very, very fortunate because that one, it's like ½ an inch from my spine. I don't know if you can see it. Right?
I got shot 2 times here and then here in my ab. Mm-hmm. So I have surgery. I had to get surgery here on my arm and surgery on my abdomen.
The despair and the nightmare, the screams, the gunshots, the visions of blood everywhere, glass everywhere, sirens, helicopters. And so all that comes into play, and you got a big gumbo of dreams deferred.
The purpose of the trip was to basically introduce myself and Danny, if I am mistaken, to the North Carolina circuit, because Keyshawn and Jermaine was already there. So Keyshawn had a relationship with North Carolina Central.
Keyshawn invited all three of us. I believe he had previously gone to the school down there and knew that these workouts were going to take place, and different recruiters from different colleges was going to be there all weekend. And I believe, his job was to bring some good players down there, right, from New York City.
So that day, I had rented a car. I had to pick up the car from Times Square. I think it was a Hertz in Times Square. At the time, my girlfriend, she was in college at the time. So I actually came back up here. I picked her up to take her to class. She was going to BMCC, which is downtown Manhattan. And then I drove back up to meet the fellas. I met Ray Sean, Amsterdam Projects.
On that day, actually it was raining that day. Earlier that day, I was with my girlfriend at the time. We were just hanging out at first in the house. Then I was packing my stuff up. She was helping me pack. I believe I went to the store for my mom to grab some stuff. And then I came back upstairs and I was just waiting for Keyshawn to show up.
From there, we went to Harlem, pick up Jermaine.
Well, the day of the incident was pretty much as such, just preparing, gathering, the gear I needed to play when we got down to North Carolina to play basketball, to try out for the various teams that would be down there scouting us. I was just preparing, making sure I had my basketball gear, making sure I had money in my pocket, to assist if needed with gas, toll, food over the weekend, because we was going to be down there for the whole weekend trying out for various teams.
And Danny, we had to drive out to Queens, I believe, to get Danny. And then from there, we were on our way.
I was excited. I mean, I was looking forward to it. I had been to the South. I know what that environment is about, as far as, basketball players and college campuses and things. We were going to stay in the dorms. I heard about the school. I heard it was a fun school. It was a party school a little bit in the summer. So, I felt like I was going to go down there and have a great time and play amazing basketball. So it was just like a win-win. Now, at the same time, I was a month away from finishing my courses. So I had a big book report. The John Steinbeck book report was due. So that's the reason, all they found besides our gear was my books and Jermaine's Bible, because my whole thing was my plan in going down there. I was like, first thing I got to do is just find the library, go in there, finish the report, and then it was going to be basketball during the day and just hanging out in the college campus at night for a few days. So, yeah, I thought it was a win-win.
I think that we had to convince a lot of the white community because they didn't experience that. But a lot of the black community, including very wealthy blacks that lived in those, what we call the Gold Coast of New Jersey, they'd been stopped. And I couldn't tell you the amount of people that would say to me, it's about time somebody does something about this. Because if you were an athlete or an entertainer, many of them bought homes in New Jersey, wanting to live in the city. If you had a late model car or a nice car, you were a candidate to be pulled over. That's who was being harassed. A lot of the misperception about racial profiling was that they were dealing with, blacks in the hood. No, it was blacks that wasn't in the hood that was going from down 95 to head to those nice bedroom communities. Those were the ones that were being pulled over, that we sort of studied that they were being pulled over at a disproportionate rate. So they were outraged. And that's why I think that these four became so important, that given their profile, because even the upper black middle class were not embarrassed to support them. And had they had a different profile, I would have had a hard time convincing some of them, well, we got to fight for these kids. And they, well, you know, I'm a vice president of a bank, or I'm with the Knicks or whatever. Nobody hesitated, because those kids were as clean as you could get. Not a blemish. Just driving while black, just being profiled on that highway. And to this day, they can't explain why they shot these kids. I mean, to this day. And I don't care what settlement they got. Who knows what they might have made if they became professional athletes? How do you pay for potential that you snatch out of a kid because of the color of his skin? And what is just as impressive about those four young men, as they're not getting arrogant and feeling like they were celebrities, is they never came off bitter to me either. I used to talk to them, especially Reyes, and I would say to myself, if I was gonna be the next Michael Jordan or LeBron James, and a guy shot me for no reason, I would be bitter. And I've never heard them say anything with venom about the situation. Their passion was about justice. And I was very impressed with Reyes, Jermaine, all of them, that how could you not be angry? Because their career gone for driving down the highway.
Growing up in the Bronx, there were tons of scenes, I would say. I didn't come in altercation with police, but there were scenes. When I was young, I seen all types of things, you know, cops in the neighborhood, roughing up people, things like that. They never come to me. I didn't have a dislike towards police officers until my incident.
I definitely grew up being racially profiled. My experience was, you know, I had been pulled over walking to school in high school more than once. Were undercovers was jumping out, and I wasn't sure who they were, and I had guns in my face, and you know, I mean, one time it felt like I saw the barrels right in my face, and I was just trying to turn off my Walkman, and you know, thank God that none of them panicked. Thought I was trying to get a gun. I was just, you know, because I was trying to figure out what they were saying, because they jump out at you so fast, and you know, regular clothes. For the most part, I felt at the time that it was a problem that only really existed in the bad neighborhoods, and for sure, I didn't think that they really profiling you in highways all over the place. So, you know, I didn't realize the magnitude that we still was dealing with.
I don't use the word unfortunate. I use the word, you know, tragic, you know, very tragic. You know, when the situation happened with us, there was no videos, no cell phones, and the fact that the situation is still happening and it's being recorded and people are still not getting no justice, it's insane.
It's a self thing, meaning each individual have to look into themselves. You know, we taught to be racist. We're taught to dislike the complexion of the next person. And then there's a whole bunch of negative stereotypes that have been around since the day and age of humans, you know, this race, that race, you know, it's like, it's always negative stereotypes, which then coats the minds of individuals. And then once that is in play, it's nothing else you can do about that. You're already stuck. So, you know, in order for racism to not exist, each individual must look themselves in the mirror and really challenge themselves and saying, am I a racist individual? You know?
I would have thought it would have changed. You know, even with the George Floyd situation, it's like you're watching a movie, but it's like public execution, and it became worse. So, you know, it didn't decrease, it increased, and that's the shameful part. That's the shameful part, you know, so it's just crazy. It's just crazy.
Not all cops are bad, I know that. I don't say everyone, you know, is a bad person, but that organization, to me, is a gang. That gang is a big, powerful entity that myself and everyone else that came across them, that had in their doings with them, you being positive or negative, you still lost. Because that gang and that entity is way bigger than us, way bigger. What I do hope is maybe those individuals that's part of the law enforcement, those who are good, weigh in more good on those that are bad. And then those that are bad need to start focusing on the good aspect of the job and not the negative part of it. Because in society, most people are afraid of cops because of the negative things that are put out there by them and the negative things that are seen by them and the negative things they do. We hear more negative, we see more negative than we hear positive or see positive.
You know, it's like we take one step forward, two steps backwards, like, you know, and that's how I felt in the last 20 years because, you know, our incident made an impact at the moment, right? It was certain little changes, even with cameras and people discussing it. And then, you know, 9/11 happened, and then 9/11 kind of switched the whole thing where, you know, you almost were okay to profile again. And that, you know, obviously it went outside even just Blacks and Spanish, but it just affects everybody.
So there's been some progress, but not fast enough. There hasn't been as much progress as there's been incidents, put it like that. You know, from our case, there was progress as far as justice, civil rights acts, and things of that nature. But 50 years ago, shit, we probably would have been in jail with no justice, no lawyer, no anything. Just, you know, guilty. And in the famous words of the comedian Paul Mooney and Reverend Al Sharpton, some people got the complexion for the protection, you know.
If you write history in the long term, that racial profiling and the whole idea of dealing with it is all kicked off in that case. And I hate that these young men lost the profession that they aspired to. But in history, they would be more important than if they probably ever made the NBA. Because 100 years from now, they'd have to go back to the New Jersey 4 and say that's what really energized and ignited a question of at least discussion and hopefully years later laws around racial profiling. And they lost their careers, but they ended up being lost into history. Those young men are historic figures.
I think what we get from that clip too, right, is this notion of police accountability. So moving into the discussion, right before the event, when it comes to victims of police malpractice, violence, so forth and so on, rarely do we humanize the victims. Rarely do we even call them victims, right? But in thinking about that, you know, you guys were matriculating out of high school, heading to college potentially, right? You had dreams. You had dreams, just like anybody else in your position, right, at that time. How has this event, how did it derail your dreams?
Well, it derailed. That's not even derailment. Like Rayshawn quoted earlier, it's hard to fathom it. You leave the hood where you thought most likely you would get into an incident getting shot, to go to a school, of institute of higher learning and get shot, it's like, we did everything possible to not get into any situations where we grew up in the most dangerous situations. And come from the Bronx, Staten Island, Harlem, we avoided all that. And sometimes it's confusing, even when I look at my daughter's eyes, when she was born in 2000, 10/16, 2000, Layla. And she used to have nightmares. Me and her mother used to actually go to school. And the teachers was like, every time they used to have career day, police officer, fireman, doctor, and every time she saw a police officer, she'd say, they're going to shoot my daddy. Because we was on the news so much, going back and forth to court, lawyer's office, it was such a huge case. And it was devastating, It affected my whole family. It affected my whole community. Even some of the police officers, I played for the local PAL, and they heard it, was like, nah, not Jermaine. Nah, not Jermaine. It was Fallon. And that same night when Rayshawn said it was raining, as, Keyshawn came and picked me up, I'm going, they canceled every show off of TV that night when the incident happened. It was such a big thing on the turnpike. And my mother was literally sitting there watching TV, and it said 4 young men had a shootout with state troopers on the highway. And instantly her motherhood, and was like, I feel sorry for them kids, not knowing that I was one of them kids in the van. So it affected my whole family, my whole community.
How about for you, Danny?
It definitely affected so many different ways. Like physically, to me, was the physical part first, because I was just so messed up. I was shot 6 times, and it took me about 3 years of physical therapy to get back to like normal. So it was definitely an uphill battle. Even my mother at the time was she had moved back to Puerto Rico when I graduated high school, so she was forced to come here, and then she was taking care of me and things like that. So not only did I realized that my basketball career was over, but just seeing that my mother had to come and really sacrifice and take care of me, I didn't really like, because to be truthful, like since high school, I was like one of those kids that just looked to help my moms, and I was already doing so. I had played 3 years of professional basketball in my country in Puerto Rico, so I was already helping my mother, and now she's back to helping me. So it kind of annoyed me that she had to do that, but I was lucky enough to have a family that sacrificed and helped me. What made it, I guess, a little easier was that I didn't do it by myself. As far as I had these brothers that were going through the same thing, so I could speak to them, and we could relate to what we was going through. I didn't have to go through physical therapy by myself. I had Jermaine that I started going to his physical therapy when I was able to kind of travel a little further. And this guy's a riot, so he just kind of makes me laugh all the time. But the adjustment was setting new goals and realizing that basketball is not really going to be the future, and I had to figure out what I really wanted to do with my life once I got better.
How about for you, Ray?
I could say my family support helped me get back. And then this one story I would like to share with you. So this was actually the story that helped me, this incident. It didn't happen, but it could have happened. It goes like this. So I just finished leaving therapy, and it was a cop standing at the corner. And my mom was behind me. I kind of walked away from her. In my head, I said, I'm going to take this gun out of his holster, and I'm going to shoot this cop because of how I felt about me getting shot by a cop. It's not right, straight wrong. That's what I had planned in my head. So as I'm creeping up on this guy, he did not see me. My mother came out of nowhere, and she grabbed me and hugged me, and I started crying. And that point, is when I realized I have more to live for. That I should not throw away my life based upon someone trying to take away my life. Here's an opportunity for me to continue on. She didn't say anything. I swear to this day, this woman must have known internally what the hell I was about to do. Once she hugged me, I started crying. We then turned around and walked the opposite direction. From that day on, I realized that it was a purpose of me being here, that I was supposed to be here. And like I said, my family changed me in that situation.
I mean, clearly the takeaway from the incident is that, yes, there was physical violence, but also your right to self-determination was completely taken away. You know, and this is why I wanted to ask that question as far as your dreams, because victims of police malpractice, violence, so forth, they do have dreams, and like anyone else, a right to self-determination.
James, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Tell the story, please. He just alluded to something. I was doing physical therapy at a spot called Progressive Physical Therapy downtown. Danny was doing therapy in Long Island, Staten Island. Queens. So, you know, I was just like, yo, come and do therapy with me. We can talk, we can heal each other, get back to, you know, help each other get back on our feet, mentally, emotionally, and physically. We left therapy to go back to my mother's house in Harlem. As we get off the train, there was a beef patty shop on 126 and Lenox Avenue. 126 Lenox Avenue, right across the street from Sylvia's. Sylvia's restaurant was right across the street too. So me and Danny, we go get the chicken patties, walk to my mother's house. Looking on the news, it says two state troopers from the Jersey Turnpike incidents at Sylvia's restaurant. Me and Danny was literally across the street when we was ordering the beef patties, and they was in there holding up a plate of food. They came to Harlem to let people know that they wasn't racist. And at that moment, this is where the humility comes in. At that moment, being in my neighborhood, if I could have snapped my fingers, it would have been a whole out riot. But we just sat there and watched with amaze, like, we was just across the street. You know, so just speaks to the humility that we have, how we are, you know, we turned our negative into a positive. That's why it's so easy for us to give back to the community and do great things. Because, you know, kids say it all the time, you don't hate the police, you got shot with the police. You didn't even do anything. So if I didn't do anything, then they know they feel hopeless. So, but we have to keep installing, you know, positive images.
Going back to the aftermath of the event, you're waking up in the hospital, right? You're hearing about these news reports, and Chief Williams, you know, one of the chief of the New Jersey State Troopers, but one among many other law enforcement officials who were looking to justify what had happened to you. What was that like? Waking up in the hospital, you're fighting for your life, holding on to your lives, and then you learn that this chief is trying to deface your characters. In fact, he said that you all were trying to run down on the police, and that you were, quote, unemployed.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Unemployed.
Yeah, the original reports obviously had us unemployed, not college student, not students, you know, which both were false. I was working and going to college. And, you know, it was tough because they was already trying to, you know, set a narrative that we were trying to run them over even. Totally didn't happen. So myself, I was in intensive care that first week. So I heard about it afterwards, right? But I really was out of it for like about 5 days, I believe. But then when I came out, by the time I popped out of it, my family already had representation there, had a lawyer there, and actually had Jim Dwyer, the late Jim Dwyer from Daily News and the New York Times reporter that came and did an interview and kind of put our story out to kind of combat what, you know, it was trying to portray. So, you know, but at the time, you know, to be truthful, it was scary because, you know, you have you hear about people going to jail for something they didn't do. And they really had us as suspects and were trying to, put us under the jail in essence, because, their story was that we tried to run them over and that they were shooting at the car in fear of their lives. And that just didn't happen. So, we were blessed and fortunate to have the support of the people that came out and demanded a proper investigation, and things got turned around. But I understand that not everybody's that fortunate. So at the time I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure how I was gonna defend myself, because I knew I didn't have I knew I didn't have the money. I'm not gonna say I didn't have the resources, because it turns out that I did. I knew the right people that helped me, right? So things got turned around.
What was it like having Johnny Cochran as your attorney? And having Sharpton come on scene to help you and sort of raise awareness around this issue. What was that like for you?
It was a blessing. I mean, I don't think, honestly, we wasn't thinking about that. We were just thinking about justice, because our family, we needed answers. Our family needed answers.
But his father actually made the first contact, right?
Yeah.
When it comes to Sharpton.
One National Action Network at that time was on 125th and 5th Avenue. And my father and my sister went over there. And Reverend Al Sharpton was, they was asking to speak to him. And he was just like, I heard about the story, but he was conflicted in the beginning, because remember the Tawana Burley story, He was really conflicted. So he's 4 young men shot in the turnpike, don't know what was in the van. And my father and my sister looked at him and my father said, I know my son. I know my son. And something in him was like, I'll take out a preliminary investigation. But the Johnny Cochran thing, what a lot of people don't know, during the O.J. Simpson trial, one of the reasons he said he took the case was because he got pulled over in his Bentley Rolls Royce, leaving the courthouse with his kids in the car, put him face down on the floor with the barrel of the gun in his head. It was going to intimidate him, because it was the O.J. trial. And he said that's why he changed it from DW, driving while black, to racial profiling. So the word racial profiling, like he said, if there was a picture of racial profiling, our picture would be right there.
That was like a famous quote, right, from him in dealing with y'all's case. Now, to you, Ray, the corruption aspect of this. Certainly they played the master narrative, tried to paint you all as criminals and unemployed, and we know the sort of racist scripts that comes along with that. But then eventually we learned that you all were actually innocent, right? And this came from painstaking investigations, most of which came from your team, obviously, your team of attorneys. But when Christy Whitman, when the governor came on the television and admitted to racial profiling in the state, what was that like for you?
Well, she denied it first.
Yeah.
So her actually, a couple of years later, having to admit it, that was actually, it was a win, because she did deny it that first year. And it got to the point, the evidence, that it was overwhelming, that she had to admit that there is some type of problem. And that's when they started really looking into it.
How was that for you, Ray? Seeing the governor on the television actually, and of course, some time later after the incident, but seeing her on TV actually admitting that this is an issue.
It was good that she admitted. Reason being, take it back to the question you asked, how we felt the night of. That night of, like Jermaine, I was asleep. So I was shot in my sleep and woken up by a bullet. However, I was handcuffed to the stretcher. So I was I wasn't classified as a victim. I was a suspect. Even when I got into the hospital, I was interrogated as a suspect. I still was handcuffed with the bullet still lodged into my arm. I woke up the next day in the hospital with a cop sitting by my bedside, which then made me extremely scared to see on the news 4 black guys had a shootout with New Jersey State Troopers. There's a white cop right here sitting next to me. I wake up and I'm handcuffed, both hands handcuffed to the bed, to the stretcher. Then there's a cop here who then tells me, you see what you guys did? her saying that the police did wrong, it's good years later to the masses. For someone like myself, you should have said it the day of.
It was too late for you. Go ahead,
And
Jermaine.
you talking about incriminating, they went as far as back as my junior high school. Now, in a case, there's any case that's bigger than what they think is going to be, we send private investigators.
Oh, yeah.
They sent a private investigator to my junior high school to see if I was disruptive. Oh, they try to infiltrate my school records to see if I caused any problems in class. He had that. They had to aggravate the police. So they was trying to discredit us in every perceivable way. To the point where a lot of people don't know, the 100 black law enforcement inside the New Jersey State Police couldn't prove if they was being taught racial profiling acts. So it was one particular time I was taking my daughter to Great Adventures, and the state trooper pulled up behind me, literally. And me, I'm frantic. I'm shaking my boots. I'm like, what did I? Every black person get pulled over, you be like, what did I do? Damn it, I ain't steal nothing. I was frantic. And he literally walked up to me, asked me my name. He said, I know who you are. He said, I want to thank you. Reform. Things changed, started to change after that. So, and I was scared to shake his hand, but I understood what he was saying. He was like, you guys were able to expose something that not even we was able to expose that was going on inside the apartment. And we supposed to be part of the brotherhood.
Yeah, I mean, research shows, right, that a lot of minoritized officers and just agents of the criminal justice system writ large, this includes people who work in the courts, people who work in juvenile justice and so forth, that they do report feeling like outsiders, right? Although they are, to some degree, an insider, right? But it definitely does boil down to race. And to pivot to what you mentioned about the changes, right? Like in the aftermath, of course, the cars, each vehicle, cop car had to have mounted cameras and different things of that sort. Was that enough for you, or is it enough?
I mean, it's not enough. That's just one small step. I believe, a lot of reform, a lot of changes need to happen to improve the overall, police experience in America. Training, learning how to de-escalate instead of going straight to 0 to 100 and killing somebody and shooting somebody. That's been a big problem, right? You could literally make a mistake, and the first thing they're thinking about is they shooting to kill. The other part of reform that I believe is reform is just kind of redistributing the budget. Just making sure that you still have, like, when I was a kid, I played in the PAL, the Police Athletic League. Those type of resources for the youth to be able to have a place to go to and stay away from the streets. Not every department needs so many weapons and so many, unnecessary things where you're taking away the resources to the community. So, and then another problem, the way I see it in America too, is that not every department, not every state, not every city gets the same training. So it all really depends where you're at. You could be in one county and then the next county, they train totally different. So I think, that has to change overall when it comes to this country, and just be a little bit more consistent on how these police officers are being trained in America. Because there are certain cities that are advanced in their training, and then there's a lot of cities that are just not,
I'm gonna pivot to that right now. I promise you.
Oh,
I promise.
I'm sorry. The reform part, that's why we use the word reform, because we was asked this question. We get asked this question a lot. How do you guys feel about abolishing the police? I'm like, did you see the movie The Purge? Like, no, we need police officers. We just need reform,
That's an important takeaway, right? And part of that reform essentially is like a segment of your society who are also citizens simply asking for a difference, right? A difference in how policing is administered, particularly in their communities. But at this moment, we do want to give the audience an opportunity to engage some Q&A. So feel free to come up to either of the mics on the front parts of the stage and ask your question. We just ask that you note your name at least so that panelists can address you.
I'll take the mic over to them. No.
Well, good evening, gentlemen.
Good
I am
evening.
so proud to finally meet you.
Thank you.
I have just one little statement that you didn't know, but Danny knew, that I'm writing a play about them. I've been writing it for about the last 23 years. I feel like I've been living it, and I finally got a chance to meet Danny. But my question, getting back to my question, I'm not trying to put myself up here at all, is that this whole question of reform, I'm kind of involved right now with the bail reform, and I was a little hopeful about it. I thought that reform might help people who can't afford to get bailed out. And I'm finding, because I'm involved with a situation with also they were brothers, they're actually blood brothers, and they were attacked by the police. One of them is in jail right now, has been in jail since June 1st of last year. Because of bail reform, the judge is making all the decisions to keep him incarcerated. And, they have a point system, and his points are like 1 or 2, the lowest you can get, and it's still the judge's decision. Now, that whole situation was called bail reform. And to me, it's bail setback. It's, crucifying this guy. So I want to know what you guys thought about the whole issue of all. You mentioned a bunch of laws that still haven't been processed or whatever. Well, this is a good example of something that was supposed to be a reform. So I'm wondering what your guys' experience was with reform.
I mean, I know, I'm trying to understand, but I know that, for example, the racial profiling laws was set in the early 2000s from us going with the Reverend Al Sharpton, Johnny Cochran at the time, meeting with Senator at the time, Clinton and Corzine and those people, and they established the racial profiling laws. But to this day, they never have been actually used. Like she was saying, we went through all that trouble, but yet nobody has, not one police officer has ever been processed through the racial profiling laws, even though there's so many cases all around the country for the last 20 years. So, we do have to not just put the law in place, we actually, have to utilize it and make it work.
And the reforms have to be based on what the community wants as well, right? And not created in this very technocratic way with just policymakers and experts and officers, for that matter. Yes, please.
Hi, my name is Leandro Montesino. I'm a college student now, but I do go to Kean University, but I came up here with one of my friends to see you guys. It's funny because in the timing on Thursday, where I'm having an event on campus called People of Color, our main objective is to speak on the adversities as young people of color and see how to exceed our expectations. My thing that was really caught my attention, what you said, is that the anger and the emotions that you guys felt from your incident. What advice do you have to me or the young college students that go into a situation like that or experience a situation, and how to deal with it and not let our emotions take over? Because then, as they did to you, try to paint a picture that they could do the same thing to us.
Well, just, we always use how we was raised. Single parent household, 2-parent household, it all depends how you was raised. Sometimes when they can't de-escalate, you have to de-escalate. We live by something called live your life on purpose. So you have to think about the consequences of what you think your emotions are going to take you. You know, it's like one bad decision and lights out. So, you know, try to find that common ground to where you know that, you know, if you run into a police officer, because it is a hard job, you know, they're human too, but sometimes you just gotta, you know, energy. So you gotta just know how to de-escalate it for yourself, because 9 times out of 10, people are not gonna de-escalate the situation for you.
Yeah. How are you? My name is Randall Yorker, and I'm one of the members of the Black Alumni Advisory Council. My name is Randall Yorker, and I'm one of the members of the Black Alumni Advisory Committee. So thank you, everyone, for your attendance, and thank you for being here. I just wanted to say that I, too, was experienced an incident. I was delivering a paper while in law school to my professor, and in Rutherford, not far from here, and I too was pulled over with guns drawn and pointed to my face, but unfortunately it didn't go any further than that. So I have a sense of what it's like, but not to your degree. But I just thought I'd mention that because it is real and it does happen. But my question to you is that when we talk about racial profiling and when we talk about Black Lives Matter, when we hear this statement that we need to be more concerned with the Black on Black crime. You all have, can I take this off? Sorry. You all have talked about the community in which you come from, and I like to refer to it as being challenged community in terms of crime and the struggle, and that it was at least your thought that you made it from the community and now you were traveling to your destiny on the turnpike. So, and then this happened to you. So what do you have to say about individuals when they bring up the point that we shouldn't be concerned with those things? We need to be concerned with the murders that we commit in our own community against each other. How does that play into your situation?
Well, it goes back to, you know, how we grew up. Like with exactly what Danny said, some of that money got to be allocated and go else places. Need more jobs, you know, some of you programs. Need programs for kids. The more programs, the less likely you're going to get into a situation in the streets. And we need more neighborhood policing, and we need as we grew up around OGs, to kind of take you away from the negative, even if they're involved in the negative. Because when I grew up, you know, the guys that was doing bad and they saw you doing something good, they deferred you. So we need more, and we need more community outreach. You know, because like I said, if you have an example of something to do, then less likely you'll get caught up into something.
And I think you should be concerned for both. You know, it doesn't, you know, yeah, we should be concerned about, you know, Black on Black, minority on minority. It's really hood on hood, you know, because I've been to many hoods. It's all shapes and colors there, depending where you at. But, you know, we can never, you know, let up when it comes to equality and civil rights. I mean, to me, there's no equality is equality. So, and that's the reason I always say equality, because when I say it, I don't need to say the race. Civil rights, everybody should be entitled to their own civil rights in this country, right? So, you know, it's two different things that are important to always, you know, improve both, but civil rights and equality, we've been fighting that for 400 years plus, you know, so we can't let up.
Please, take it away.
So my last question is that you said it tonight that your mom was a police officer, and my research tells me that she was a
a police officer for over 30 years. Right. What does your mom say to you now, or did she say to you about your experience and how she felt?
I mean, she always taught me that good police officers like she was, but there was always some bad apples, right? And I remember her telling me as a kid, like, you know, that there are some police officers that abuse their power, and you know, she always advised me to, you know, don't de-escalate in a sense, right? Don't let the emotions get in, like, you know, to tell you it's not worth it. You know, you're better off taking a deep breath and trying to figure out why is this officer trying so hostile when you know, in fact, you're not doing anything wrong, right? So I knew that early. Now afterwards, you know, she, like any mother, I mean, she definitely couldn't believe that this happened to her son, and you know, when the research and the discovery and everything came out, you know, people couldn't really believe that in this state in particular, our case, we have the evidence. I mean, there's a reason why we didn't go to the actual trial. I don't think they wanted that. The discovery we had showed that those were two bad apples, yes, but it was a whole system that was taught out of racial profile for decades, for many decades. You know, it was systematic, and you know, that's why some of the high ups did roll, Carl Williams and others, because it was a systematic issue that the state has had for many, many years, and you know, finally needed to be broke open.
Yeah. And I mean, Carl was eventually terminated, right, for making inflammatory remarks that were racial in nature.
Right.
But just before we pivot here to the black on black statement, that piece of your question, because it's very important we unpack that a little bit further. Oftentimes it's used as this sort of divisive political tool, you know. But what's also true is the fact that, you know, most crime is intraracial. So most blacks are committing crimes amongst other blacks, likewise for whites and other racial ethnic groups. And it's more or less symptomatic of the fact that we still live in a racially segregated society, right? So it's an outcome of those living patterns. And another point to make, too, is the fact that we don't focus enough on white crime does a huge disservice to white victims, right? Not only in areas such as this, but think of Appalachia, where there are lots and lots of victims who receive virtually no airtime as to what their plight is. Yes.
I just want to say, my name is Bruce Smallwood, and I just want to, first of all, say God bless you for coming up and sharing your experience and your story. Very powerful. There was something that was said where you talked about how you were raised, didn't have blemishes, you were good kids, and you know, this can happen. You were sleeping. There's nothing you did that warranted what happened. And the fact that you're out here now and continuing to send a message, I think is powerful. I know it's Black History Month. It's also Mental Health Awareness Month. And all of you, you're Black, and I'm sure you're dealing with mental issues because of what has happened. I just want to thank you, because the racial profiling, again, like you said, there are things on the books, but it hasn't been enforced. And we still go through it today. You know, I'll be 70 years old this year. And when I ride down the highway and I see flashing lights, my heart races. I make sure when I dress, I have to dress a certain way for fear if I throw on something that, you know, could make me look like I'm a threat, that my life can be taken too. So what you're doing, I just want to applaud you. I know you have, I read where you have something called Pass to Assist, and you're giving back to the community. And like you said, this is what's needed. You know, I came up in a time where we had recreational programs, you know, and I don't care who you are or what neighborhood you're in or what color you are. As a kid, kids will get into things and do things. It's just their makeup. They're active, they're hyper, they want to do something. If you have something structured, in a structured environment, they'll grow. If you don't have that, they could fall by the wayside. So continue to do what you do, and I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, gentlemen. Thank you for coming. Really touched me, a story, and I've heard about you. Greg and I are college roommates, if you will. We go back many, many years, and we shared an office in New York. I think you were in that office on 37th Street. But having said that, again, I graduated in '81 from Montclair. I sit on both boards with Greg on the foundation and on the Black Alumni Advisory Council. But my question to you, and it didn't come out and you might say, well, you got to wait for the book or read the story, but what happened when the police officers pulled you over? You know, I think I'm asking that question because as a 62-year-old today, right now, and I have three boys, what I tell them today is to, when a police officer pulls you over, turn your interior lights on and roll your windows down and put your hands on the steering wheel today. So again, that's my question to you. Like, when they pulled you over, was it argumentative? Did they ask you to get out of the car, or did they just walk up to you and start firing? I'll leave you guys with
Well, Danny can answer that because me and Rashawn was asleep in the back. So.
Yeah, it was. I mean, that's why I call it a classic case of racial profiling, because, you know, all I could tell you is what I went through with my account, and we were riding in the middle lane. Keyshawn, that's not here, was the driver, and I was in the front passenger seat. So I haven't seen him since high school. We was teammates in high school, so we were just talking, catching up, and he was going right at the speed limit, right? I was supposed to take over the wheel, probably like in Delaware or something like that, and I probably would have been going a little faster. I don't really go right on speed limit, you know. I probably like a little 10, 5, you know. But so we was going, you know, we was going North Carolina. So I'm looking at him like he's really going to drive the speed limit the entire time. So, but I didn't want to like put any pressure on him. So I was just like, I'll just make up for time when I take over. And so then the trooper vehicle pulled next to us on the left lane, and you know, they just were looking inside, right? So they were just profiling us. And because they was right next to us, and I looked at them, I looked at how fast he was going, he's going the speed limit, I honestly thought they was gonna just continue, right? And what they did is they slowed down, came behind us, and then they put their lights on. So at that moment, we realizing, oh wow, they are pulling us over. So Keyshawn made his way to the shoulder. And as we pulled into the shoulder, you know, I'm kind of waiting for the whole license and registration routine. So I'm just kind of like this, just waiting for as he pulls over. And they must have pulled over right behind us, not 15 feet apart, like a lot of times they're supposed to. And because I felt the bump, right? Now the bump, turns out that Keyshawn went to put it in park, and it didn't go all the way to park, so the bumpers did touch. But so when they came out, I heard a gunshot, and then immediately one of the troopers came to my window, front passenger window, and he just took out his baton and just broke the window with his baton, right? Cleared the glass. So at that moment, I'm trying to show him my hands to show him I'm not trying nothing funny. Now he looked dead at me and just started firing. That's why I got shot here. When I got shot in my stomach, because I just went like this once he started firing. Now, you got to understand, the attempted murder is only against me because there was witnesses that had the same account. Like, I had my hands up, he looked at me and just started firing. And as we mentioned earlier, they probably should have just told the truth. You know what I'm saying? So however the case is going to go down, just tell the truth. They made up the story. Their story was that they was on the floor, that the car was coming at them. They was in fear of their lives, and that they were shooting up at the car. I said, so that's when they did the big reenactment. I mean, they literally shut down the turnpike, brought in all the forensic evidence people, and it showed that the bullets were always coming down. They was just shooting inside the car. Their life was never in danger, So that's why it's a very complicated thing, because they did make up a whole story, but we never had the opportunity for that interaction. They came out with their guns blazing, and that's what happened. That's why they did wake up to bullets, because it happened that fast.
Yeah, so when we woke up to bullets, I mean, my initial, I thought we was getting carjacked. So I'm saying to myself, like, God damn, you getting carjacked in another hood? I was like, shit. So my thing was, every time I moved, I got hit with a bullet. I moved, I got hit with a bullet. So I said, let me stay still. And then, that, as Danny said, that's when the state trooper broke the glass, cleared the glass out, and he held his gun up. And when and I realized, oh shit, that's the police. He paused for about 2 seconds and he opened fire, 4 shots, bang, 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 bang. And I said, damn, I'm a down, I don't even know why. Which one of these niggas got drugs in the car?
Now, that was the thing too, because we met that night technically because Keyshawn invited everybody. So I didn't know these two. I didn't know. For all I knew, they could have had drugs. They could have had criminal record. They could have something that would have justified everything. But we was all from different parts of New York City, and just basketball was the tool that was getting us out. And no criminal record, no nothing. He had a Bible. I had my John Steinbeck books, and there was really no way to justify that.
And they found, now mind, we didn't know each other. I knew of him. I played with him, played with Keyshawn. So I'm like, oh, I knew. So we finally met up that night. So, but other than that, our family and friends was like, I'm pretty sure we all got the same thing. Yo, man, did you really know him? Do you know? So now when they say they found a powdery substance in a car,
right?
But it was really creatine because he was working out.
They thought they found what they needed.
Substance. I said, God damn.
Because I was training, so I was going for the weekend. So I just put the creatine that you buy at GNC. I just put some in a glass jar and put it in my book bag. So when I was going to be working out. And they took it to the lab. They thought they had what they was looking for, and it was just creatine. So,
and lastly, for our young people, and even those of us that are still driving on the highway, what do you say to young people today how they should handle police officers? And thank you again for your comments, guys.
Well, I would say, no emotions. Approach the situation with no emotions. Be patient. Try to keep yourself calm, especially if you ain't doing anything wrong. And talk with a tone of no threat. Make sure they have visual of your hands, which is most important. So if they do it to pull you over, have your hands on the steering wheel the proper way. Like gentleman was saying, telling his son, like you were saying, keeping the interior light on. If you can, turn your interior light on so they can see inside the vehicle, because the vehicle we got shot in, the passenger back end of the minivan, the windows were tinted. So they didn't see me and Jermaine. Yeah. They only saw Keyshawn and Danny. So if your car have tinted windows, to make sure they can basically just make sure they can see in the car, they can see you, and you are actually calm. I have recently got pulled over, and my approach now is what I'm saying. I do calm myself down because I do get nervous because I don't trust them. And I calm myself down. I keep myself poised and calm. My hands are on the steering wheel, and I roll down all of my windows. Regardless if it's raining, snowing, it doesn't matter. My windows are down. I want you to see in the vehicle. I want you to make sure you see it's just me. And I'm a no threat. So you have no reason to take any action.
Shit, I do as much. I open up my sunroof. He's like, shit. Cop be like, what the hell are you doing? So I'm like, I know it's raining, but fuck it.
Yeah.
See it all over.
Yeah, so these days you just never know. But before we throw the program back at Greg, do we have one last question? Yes, please. Go ahead.
It's a privilege to listen to you and to hear your story. I came here not really expecting what has happened because I thought we would listen to a very sobering, painful story that had no upside ending. But in fact, instead, it's incredibly inspirational. Because what you guys have done with your lives, the way you have harnessed this terrible tragedy with humility and a sense of purpose is extraordinary. Change isn't going to come. We had this conversation before. Change isn't going to come unless we get beyond talking to people who we agree with. And I hope, as modest as you are, as perhaps reluctant a bit to go through this, as you may be, that you embrace the moment again to come forward and keep telling this story to people beyond these rooms. And I'm very excited to hear that there's a film that is in the works that really fleshes out this story and gets the wider world to have a chance to meet you. That's an extraordinarily effective way to do it. I'd be interested to know what the plan is. I'd be interested to know when you're likely to do it, how far it is that it's along, and what we can anticipate in terms of what you may be doing to promote that, to be out there, and maybe to have another opportunity to hear your story in a wider forum. Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think he pretty much underscored what my last question was going to be, which is about the importance of perseverance. None of you allowed this incident to hold you down, to hold you back, to set you back. You have your organizations now. Why was it important to persevere?
You know what? For me, in the beginning, just seeing how many people supported us and came out and protested and really turned everything around for us. And then just going through the trial, not the trial, but the case as far as on our road to try to get some type of justice. It gave me the motivation as far as if all these people are supporting me, then if Johnny Cochran or the Reverend Sharpton or somebody or some other organization asked me to do something, if I could do it, I made myself available because I felt that was the only way I could actually fight to try to get justice. And as I went on, I realized, that, like the gentleman was saying, we need to tell our story because, we have to create the difference for the future. So, and then another part, at least for me, because, I really didn't go, I've done so much physical therapy and I haven't done too much psychological therapy, but speaking about it, writing about it was a way for therapy for me. It was therapeutic.
I think that perseverance tip here is crucial, and especially for younger people to understand. So we definitely commend you for that. Definitely. I want to bring Greg back to the stage at this moment, who will pursue another introduction.
Thank you, Jason. I think now is a good time to give a hand to the Jersey Four and Jason. I want to personally thank Danny and Rayshawn for bringing my sneakers all the way up here to Montclair to make. They knew I needed a new pair. Jermaine obviously didn't get the message, but and I can tell you these guys have people have noted that they've had a very, very positive attitude, but they've always had that, they've maintained that, and they've just tried to do a lot of good things. And I think this is one of the reasons why I wanted them here. I personally called Danny, said, hey, come up to Montclair State, bring my sneakers and talk to the people, So I want to personally thank them for being here. And at this time, I want to bring Joanne Bowman up, who is the president of the Black Alumni Advisory Council for you. So Joanne.
Thanks, Greg. Good evening, everyone. So I have to say, I'm just totally thrilled by this event tonight. And my heart is just full of, just joy for you, for persevering through your experience. But also, I've learned a lot about having my own experiences in situations like this, but also ways in which we can help and teach others, right, in terms of dealing with situations like this. I would hope that at some point in the future, in our future, that we won't have to have these conversations, that we will be able to live together in ways that we are accepted, regardless of what we look like, regardless of our gender, our identity, our color, our age, and that's my hope for the future. And so that brings me to our Black Alumni Advisory Council. I attended Montclair State, graduated in '82. Happy to be reconnected with the university. And one of the things that we're looking to do is to bring alumni together through our partnerships and collaboration and work in ways that will bring about social justice and ways that will connect people from across our world who may have been somehow connected to Montclair State at some point in time. So I'm the president of the Black Alumni Advisory Council, glad to be connected with this council. It's made up of alumni of MSU. In June of 2021, we reconnected to work together in our desire to reconnect with the university. And with the partnership of the Alumni Engagement Office, we have successfully launched several events, including this one. So what I would like to say is thank you to the Alumni Engagement Office and their team, Jean Morano, Alyssa Zanola, Ashante Patterson, for your partnership with the Black Alumni Advisory Council and this venture. I'm equally thrilled to have reconnected with a wonderful group of colleagues who at some point in time, we were students together here. Some of us met here when we were attending. So Greg Collins, of course, Brenda Coleman Caldwell, Diane Riles Gibson, Antoinette Clay, Doreen Tucker, Randall Yorker, Donna Teal, and Diana Hernandez, founding group of the Black Alumni Advisory Council. We're busy planning additional events, hopefully ones that will be as impactful as this one. One is on our list right now, our upcoming fundraiser, which will be in early June of this year. So all of you who are here today will get some information about that event, and we really look forward to having you join us. If you know alumni who would like to work with us, please send them our way. We would be happy to talk and engage with them and with you all for future events. And ones that are just as impactful as this one. And I have to say, I'm just really thrilled that we were able to have you here. I have a question though, and I hope I can ask it, but where's the fourth Jersey 4 person? Yes.
Yeah, he wasn't able to make it today.
Okay.
But he's still around.
Oh, he is.
He's still in contact.
Good. Awesome. So thank you everybody for coming. We appreciate your being here and again, listening to this wonderful story of courage and perseverance. Really thrilled and happy that you were all here. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Joanne. One last thing, and Dan, you can thank me later, but Danny and Jermaine are also part owners of a tequila brand You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yave tequila in particular is, it is the smoothest tequila.
It's very smooth. I've tested it.
It is. But
again and again and again.
It is award-winning tequila. We've been out 4 years. We have the first ever mango tequila as well, and jalapeno, all natural, gluten-free, all that good stuff. And we started in the original tagline was "Dreamt up in Harlem, made down in Mexico," but now we in 10 states. So New Jersey being our number one market.
Yeah. So that's the end of our program. Thank you for coming out. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned a lot today. I know I did. So thank you for being here. Good night.